In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
The New Orleans cops and political officials, those in charge of Bourbon Street and beyond, were warned that Bourbon Street was vulnerable to a car ramming. City leaders were warned in a 2019 physical security assessment that tourist-packed Bourbon Street was vulnerable to a vehicle ramming attack because some of the existing blockade mechanisms were inoperable. The warning proves painfully real, of course, 5 years later on New Year's Day, when that Shamsuddin Jabbar drove through pedestrians and over pedestrians on Bourbon Street, 14 people killed, dozens injured. It was a truck ramming and gunfire attack. He'd proclaimed his support for ISIS. New Orleans first installed metal security barriers on Bourbon Street in 2017 following the 2016 truck terror attack on Bastille Day. That was in France, remember, in Nice? That same year, a report prepared by the infrastructure consulting firm that was hired by New Orleans noted that Bourbon Street is, quote, often densely packed with pedestrians, presenting a risk and target for terrorism. 2 years later, a security assessment prepared for the French Quarter Management District by the security firm of a different group faulted the bollards that had been installed. They said some of these bollards, those are these big, there they go, you see some of them, some of these bollards are inoperable for a number of reasons. Some were broken, some were kept down for ease of use. This assessment is a brutal one. Bollards were not up, this is a quote, because they are near completion with the expectation of being completed by Super Bowl, according to the New Orleans mayor. The New Orleans mayor continues, because the city of New Orleans is hosting the Super Bowl this year, it gave the city of New Orleans an opportunity to go further and deeper with infrastructure improvements. So cops, as you know, we talked about this last week, parked a cruiser to block Bourbon Street on New Year's Eve. The police superintendent says, we did have a plan, but the terrorists defeated it. Of course, the reality is you left a huge gap along the sidewalks where a vehicle could just turn and take advantage of that essential soft spot in your plan to protect the public. Meantime, there are realities around the Cybertruck guy that are eerily familiar. Tony, do you have a little bit of that? Here's a little bit of a roll-in on that.
I failed him. We all failed him.
The ex-girlfriend of Matthew Livelsberger, the man who carried out the Las Vegas blast in front of the Trump Hotel, opening up about their final messages. Alicia Arrett hadn't heard from her ex-boyfriend, Livelsberger, a decorated U.S. Army Special Forces soldier, in over 2 years, when she says he started texting her on December 27th out of the blue, asking how she was.
He was just checking up on me.
What began as casual messages quickly became the last words she would ever exchange with him. The Master Sergeant served in the U.S. Army for almost 20 years. He was even featured on the History Channel series Ultimate Soldier Challenge in 2013.
We're going to go full out just like we've done the entire challenge.
In 2018, when Arrett and Livelsberger were dating, he started to open up about the struggles he was facing, at one point texting, "I have been spiraling down the last week or so. Sometimes I get so hopeless and depressed, by far the worst of my life."
He was really open about the trauma he faced and the teammates he lost.
On December 29th, Livelsberger sent pictures of the Cybertruck he rented.
He sent some front views and he shared he felt like he was Batman or Halo.
It wasn't until 2 days later, when the FBI contacted Arrett, that she found out what happened in Las Vegas.
they started to show me a video of him in the Cybertruck, my whole heart broke for him. That he was so broken that he got to that place.
Eric is still struggling with why Livelsberger would take his own life.
He didn't say anything explicit that would have triggered it, I guess.
On his nearly 20 years of military service, Livelsberger saw multiple combat deployments. The FBI describing the incident in Las Vegas as a tragic case of suicide by a highly decorated service member struggling with PTSD and other issues, guys.
That is, I think, really a fundamental point here. I mean, I do believe this guy was radicalized, clearly. I mean, right, that's not much of a stretch. But the fact that he was so damaged by the concussive injuries that he had spoken of, he'd lost part of his hearing, he had repeated headaches, he had, from battle, there were a number of physical manifestations of everything that he'd been through, and the psychological manifestations coexist with all of that. And that, I think, on some level underpins a lot of what happened. But the one-offs we're seeing and the inability of our society, and I'm talking about really the institutions of society, to deal with soldiers as they come out of these theaters of war, it's a problem. And these kind of stochastic terrorism, the one-off terrorism, the lone wolf terrorism, it does fit into a pattern. And so it is that when you're frustrated, when you're physically being affected in torturous ways, I mean, these are tormenting headaches that he complained about, I think you become more, shall we say, vulnerable to things that might affect you on a societal level. And clearly that was the case here. That's Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.